Welcome to today's class. Today we will be dealing with the next chapter, that is poultry processing. So in this section I'll be talking about the pre-slaughter care of poultry. Then in the coming section I'll be talking about the various steps in poultry processing and further poultry processing. So today we'll be seeing the pre-slaughter care of poultry. So in the pre-slaughter care of poultry, we'll be talking about the collection of birds, handling and transportation of live birds. Let me give a small introduction about the poultry industry in India, just how the industry is going on. In India as well as in the US, most birds are raised on the contract basis. That is, the producer or the grower provides the land, labor, housing, equipments, utility and litter. While the companies, say like for example if you take Sugna, Shanti or Venkis, provide the birds vaccine, feed and fuel the producers, and they have to grow the birds for say 6 to 7 weeks. After the growing and a buyback, the big companies will be taking back. That is and the companies pays the producer according to the bird's performance. Say for example, if you take Sugna integration system, they give the chicks, they give the feed, they give the vaccines and all these things to the farmers. And the farmers will grow the birds for 6 to 8 weeks. 6 to 7 weeks they will grow, and the Sugna will take back the chicken. Is it clear? And they'll pay per kg, they'll be paying 6 rupees or 5 rupees, like as per the contract they'll be paying it. So that is a system that is commonly followed by the big industries, and in India also we are following that system. So the main problem that we come across during this processing is the bruises. You know that the final quality of any food material depends upon the raw material quality. If the raw material quality is not good, naturally the final quality will not be good. So we have to see that the quality is maintained. So during the poultry process, the industry face is that the bruises. You can see the bruises. So what is bruises, or why it is occurring, or the fracture of the bones is another issues we'll come across. Fracture. So here, what is bruises? First we have to understand what is bruises. Bruises generally results from surface injury. Okay, it is a surface injury where the impact force or the force does not pierce the skin. Is it clear? Instead rupture the blood capillaries beneath the skin. So there will be rupture of the blood capillaries will be taking place, and you can see the bruises, the red colors you can see here. Okay. So what's the problem if there's a bruises? So if the bruises is there, it is not accepted by the consumers, or consumer reject such type of products. So it is giving a big loss to the exporters as well as for the industries. Because while grading also, this is not graded in the top qualities, or the carcass will lose the aesthetic appearance. So naturally, for the producers, it will be a big loss. So we have to take every step to reduce this bruises. And not only that, if there any problem if you consume this bruised meat, the problem is that in such area, the bacterial load will be more. And if you're not cooking it properly, say if you're not cooking to minimum 74 degrees centigrade core temperature, I'm talking core temperature, if you're not cooking means naturally there is a chance for food poisoning also, because in these areas or such areas we can find the bacterial load is more, which can produce the poisoning or exotoxins or endotoxins can be produced, and that can lead to the food poisoning. Okay, so this is a problem with the bruises. So how to reduce the bruises is a thing that we have to think about as a processor, because then only our final product will be of good quality. So how to reduce this? First is, when you are going to catch the birds, okay, the first thing that we have to remove is you have to remove the feeder, water and other accessories that is present there. Okay, it should be removed. If there is some equipments are there, all these things should be removed, because when you're going to catch the birds, naturally the birds will start running. Okay, and it can goes and dash against the feeder and waterer and other equipments or accessories that you are kept in the deep litter system or in the farm. Okay, so that can lead to fracture, or that can lead to the bruises. Okay, another problem is avoid kicking and throwing. You must have seen in the farms the what you call as the people who are involved in catching the birds, they're called as the catching crews or the assembly crew. If they are not trained properly, what happens is they used to catch the birds and throw the birds into the crates while catching the birds, or they'll kick the birds. So that also can lead to the fracture of the bones, especially the wing bones, and it can also lead to the bruises. Because again, you can see is when you catch and throw the birds, you know the breast is very heavy in the case of broilers. So they go and strikes on the floor. So that can lead to the bruises. Okay. Another thing, if you are not putting the in the proper crates, okay, that is another issue you can come across. If the crate is very rough, or the crate is not of proper quality, what happens? Again, it can lead to the bruises. So I'll be talking that in detail when we are going with the next in the coming slides. Okay, how to catch the birds. In that I'll be talking all these things. Okay. So the first step that we have to take care is the removal of the feed. Okay, that is fasting. As in the case of large animals and in the small ruminants, we do fasting. In the cages also, in the poultry also, we have to do the fasting of the birds. So why we have to go for fasting of the birds? So once you are not feeding the birds, or when you do the fasting of the birds before catching the birds, the advantages is that the GI tract will be containing less feeds. Okay, so when you there is a minimize the risk of contamination during evisceration by the intestinal content if it is accidentally cut. So if you are not doing the fasting, what happens is the GI tract will be full. Yes or no? So when you do the evisceration process, or when you remove the internal organs, naturally we have to apply the pressure. So there's a chance for rupturing of the GI tract. So the GI tract can breaks, and it can lead to the contaminations. Okay, so that is one reason why we have to do fasting. Next is easy for evisceration. If the GI tract is not full, it is easy for removing the GI tract. Okay, easy for evisceration. And next is the less availability of the pre-digested material for the microorganisms. So if the GI tract is empty, you know the GI tract contains lot of millions and millions of microorganisms. So if the GI tract is empty, the food content is less in the GI tract, naturally the multiplications of the microbes can be reduced. So whether the feed withdrawal has any effect on the nutritive value? Absolutely no effect on the nutritive value. So even if you're not feeding for the advised durations or the optimum durations, it is not going to affect the nutritive value of the chicken. So what is the duration that we have to give? In the case of chicken, the optimum is 8 to 12 hours. In the case of turkey, it is 6 to 12 hours. So what will happen if the hour of duration is less than 8 hours? So if the hours is less than 8 hours, what happens is the GI tract will be full of feed at slaughter, and intestine will be large and rounded. So GI tract will be full, it will be round, and it will be large. So when you are going with during the processing, that is during the vent opening, what happens is the feed filled intestine can easily cut. So when it is completely full, what is it? And you know the GI tract of the poultry is very thin, so there is a chance for cutting of the GI tract. So that can lead to contaminations. Next is when you do the eviscerations, if the GI tract is full, the GI tract is full means it creates a pressure when you're removing the GI tract. So that will also will cause the leaking out of the content of the GI tract, and it can lead to the contaminations. Okay. So what next thing is that if you keep for more than 12 hours, what is the problem? Okay. So if you keep it for more than 12 hours, what happens is the mucus, or the intestinal mucus, or the GI tract mucus that is lining the GI tract will start slugging out. Okay, it becomes thinning, leading to the weaker intestines. So the chances of intestine tearing will be more. One thing. So the intestine ruptures will be, or tearing of the intestine will be more if you are not feeding for more than if you are fasting for more than 12 hours. It will leads to weakening of the GI tract or thinning of the GI tracts. Okay. So next is the muscle glycogen depletions will be taking place. So muscle glycogen depletion will increase, and the weight loss will also increase. That is, live shrinkage will also increase. So if you are fasting for more than 12 hours, it leads to the weight loss, or the live shrinkage loss will be more. Another is muscle glycogen depletions will be there. So if the muscle glycogen depletion is there, there will not be sufficient quantity of ATP, sufficient quantity of lactic acid will not be formed. So you know that during the conversion of muscle to meat, there is a formation of lactic acid. We'll be talking about in another lecture. So that lactic acid accumulations will not be there. So the preservative effect will be reduced. So the optimum time is 8 to 12 hours. If it is less than 8 hours, I told the problem, the GI tract will be full, there will be pre-digested materials will be there, so the microbes can multiply very fast. Okay, and there is a chance for rupturing. So if it ruptures, means rupturing of the GI tracts, it can lead to contaminations. If it is more than 12 hours, the problem is the thinning of the intestine will be taking place, or the mucus from the intestinal thinning will be passed with the feces, that is intestinal slugging we can call, that will be happens, and the weakness of the intestine will be taking place, and the intestine can tear or can tear. Okay, that is a problem. Another thing is the live shrinkage will be more. If you are fasting for more than 12 hours, the weight loss will be more. Another third is that the muscle glycogen depletion will increase. So in the case of poultry, the study shows that the optimum is 8 to 12 hours. In the case of turkey, it is 6 to 12 hours. Next is watering and lightening. So watering has any effect? Yes, watering helps to empty or evacuate the GI tract. So how many hours we have to do? In the case of large animals, we know that we give water at lipitum till we go for the slaughtering of the animals. But in the case of poultry, it is not like that. Once you start the fasting, then the watering can continue for 4 to 6 hours. That is the optimum. The study shows that that is the optimum. After that, we should not give water to the birds. Is it clear? So 4 to 6 hours only we have to give water to the birds. Once you started the fasting, then you give water for 4 to 6 hours, then stop giving the water, and lightning also. The reason is that if you give more water, what happens is the GI tract will be full of water. So you know that again, when you do the evisceration, the GI tract will be containing a lot of water. So and you know that because it is not like in the large animals or in the small ruminants or in the pigs. It is not like that. The GI tract is not that much thicker. But in the case of poultry, it is very thin. So when you apply the pressure during the evisceration process, there is a chance for rupturing of the GI tract, or the fluids will come out along with the contaminated materials that can come out of the GI tract. Okay, so that is why we say that only 4 to 6 hours from the start of fasting you have to give water, and after that you stop giving water. Again, is there any lightning has any influence? Yes, the lightning we have to give for 4 to 6 hours. See, under continuous light and access to the water, 60 to 70% of the intestinal contents will be evacuated during first 4 to 6 hours of feed withdrawal. So if you give the water and lightning for 4 to 6 hours, 60 to 70% of the intestinal content will be evacuated. So that is the advantages, because our basic objective is the intestine should be empty. Okay, the intestine should be empty so that contaminations will be less. That is the basic objectives. So, and the study shows that up to 4 hours lightning is enough. Actually, there is a lot of studies done about the pre-slaughter care of the birds, and most of the studies shows that 4 hours, after 4 hours of lightning has no much effect. Because if there is no lightning, what happens is the evacuation of the GI tract is reduced, or we can find there is a more feed in the crops. It shows that evacuation is not proper when there is no proper lightning. So once you start the fasting, you give lightning for 4 hours, you give water for 4 to 6 hours. After that, there is no significant increase there. If you even give more light, there is no significant decrease in the content of the GI tract. So the optimum and economical is you give lighting for 4 hours and water for 4 to 6 hours from the start of fasting. Suppose you are starting the fasting at 1 p.m. means up to 4 p.m. you give lightning, and after and up to 6 p.m. you give water. After that you don't give it. Okay. So now coming to the catching of the birds. Catching of the bird is very important, because if you are not catching the birds properly, it can lead to the bruises. If bruises is there in the carcass or in the poultry carcass, what happens is during the grading systems, it is not accepted in the best grade qualities. And another thing is, if the bruises is there in that area, the bacteria can grow, and we have to trim off or cut off that such areas, and it does not give aesthetic appearance to the carcasses. So catching of the birds is very important, and the study shows that 90 to 95% of the bruises in the poultry occurs during the last 12 hours prior to processing. So that is the time where the human handling of this bird is involved much. Okay, so 90 to 95% of the bruises occurs during the last 12 hours prior to processing. So catching of the bird is very important. So how to catch the bird is very important. So generally, when a human intervention comes, the birds will start running. So when you enter into, you know that the broiler birds are reared in the deep litter system. So when you enter into the shed, what happens? The birds will start moving. Okay. So the first thing that we have to do is remove the waterer, feeder, and other accessory equipments that is kept in the shed. Okay, because when they start moving, what happens is, or when they start running, what happens is, it can go and dash against this waterer, feeder, or whatever you keep on the deep litter system, in the deep litter. Okay, in the deep litter system, and that can lead to fracture or bruises. So that is the first step you have to do it. Okay, remove this thing. Next is, instead of disturbing the old birds, suppose in a shed there are, say that 1,000 birds are there. Don't disturb all the birds. So what we can do is, you take a divider. You take a divider, approximately you divide, approximately you in the corners you use the divider and say group into 200 birds or 300 birds. Approximately I'm talking, because we cannot exactly divide it. So approximately you use a divider and divide the birds. So we are not going to disturb all the birds. Only you are going to disturb the 200 birds. So first you catch the 200 birds, then you put it in the crates, then you go for catching the other group of birds. Like that you can do it. So the stress on the birds will be less, because the chicken are very much prone for the heat stress also, and when you put under stress, there's a chance for the death of the birds also. So we have to reduce the stress on the birds, and it also affect the quality. When you put the stress on the birds, it's going to affect the quality. So that is one we have to see. So you can use the divider, the approaching, and that is handling the birds in smaller lots of 200 to 300 birds at a time. That is most advisable. Okay. Then how to catch the bird is very important. You must have watched, if you are going to some farms, you can see the people are catching and just throwing here. See, you can see the people are just catching and they'll be just throwing the birds into the. So it will go and dash against this walls or the floors. You know, already the broiler breast is very heavy. So when you throw it out, it goes and dash against these floors. So that can lead to the bruises. So the bruises you will see mainly in the leg regions, or the thigh and the drumstick. You can see the bruises. Next is the breast region. These two are valuable cuts, or we can call it as a high valued cuts, or it is a more meaty cuts like. So if that is in that area, if bruises is there, naturally it's going to bring a big loss for the company. Is it clear? So you have to reduce the bruises. In America, they did a lot of research how to reduce the bruises, because generally what happens is the catching crews are assigned to the work, and within this time limit they have to catch this number of birds. So to catch the number of birds in a given time, what they will do is they'll be just catching it and just throwing into the crates and other things. I'll be just showing a clipping on that also. So what happened? So it was bringing a big loss to the company. So what the company did is they started giving some profit sharing to the catching crews also. Okay, some incentives they gave to this catching crews. So once they gave the incentives to the catching crews, the people or the catching crew became very careful in catching the birds and see that there is no much bruises occurring. taking place. So that is one strategy the American companies followed to reduce the bruises. So the people handling were very see, now we have more modern technologies where how we can catch the birds. That is, we can use the automatic bird catchers we can use. I will be showing that also in the as a small clipping, so that will not put more stress on the birds also. No bruises, the bruises chances can be reduced, because most of the bruises take place around 40 to 60% of the bruises take place during the catching of the birds only. Okay, so that can be reduced, and as already told, about 90 to 95% of the bruises take place last 12 hours prior to the processing. So that is one thing we have to take care. So this is how we have to catch that. You have to catch on the shank, and you can catch hold on the wings, and you can put it in the crate properly. Okay, that you have to follow. Then time of catching the birds. Okay, so normally we have to plan everything when we have to go for catching of the birds. For example, see, now the integration system is followed most of the places. So there will be one processing unit around 60 miles or 80 miles or 100 kilometers or 150 kilometers. There will be farmers will be growing the birds, and this processors will buy back the birds, and they will process it. Okay, they bring to a processing unit and they will process that. That is what the practice is going on. Okay, so we have to plan it out everything. Okay, so when we are going to start the processing, according to that we will be starting the fasting, then withdrawal of the feed, withdrawal of the water, lightning, everything will be planned. Suppose 8 o'clock I am going to process the birds. So according to that I will plan when I have to start the fasting, when I have to stop the feed withdrawal, when I have to stop the water withdrawal, lightning withdrawal, everything will be planned according to that. So we have to catch. So birds, catching of the bird, time of catching of the birds is very important. Normally we used to transport the birds during the late evening if you want to go to a long distance, or in the early morning or midnight. Okay, this is the time where we will catch the birds for processing. But is very important, because when the sunlight is more, when the climate is very high temperature, that time you should not catch the birds, or you should not transport the birds, because the birds are very much prone for heat stress. So we will be deciding when we have to catch the birds. So normally we will be catching the birds. If you want to transport to a long distance, then we will be catching in the late evening or midnight. If it is a short distance only, we will be catching in the early morning, and we'll be transporting to the processing unit. Why the birds are very much prone for the heat stress is that, one thing, it is body temperature is very high, around 40 degrees centigrade its body temperature. So another reason is it does not have the sweat glands. It does not have the sweat glands. So if you transport the birds at a high temperature, what happens is it can lead to the heat stroke, or the birds can die out of the heat stress. Okay, so we have to catch the birds accordingly and transport the birds accordingly. So how to handle the birds? That's what I said. This is the best way of handling the birds. Hold on the shanks, and you can partially catch the wings. Okay, generally what happens, the people will catch and throw the birds. Okay, when they throw the birds, it is going to lead to large number of bruises, which is going to affect the quality of the meat, or it is going to affect the profit of the company. So after catching up the birds, we have to put in the crates. So there were different in the older days they were using the wooden crates where they were using it. So that crates has been replaced with HDPE crates and fiberglass crates. The advantages of HDPE crates and the fiberglass crates is it is lighter in weight, uniform in weight. Okay, easy for cleaning. More number of crates can be loaded on the truck. Okay, that is the advantage. That is, it is lighter in weight, uniform in weight, easy to clean, and now more number of crates can be loaded on the truck. So the transportation cost can also be reduced. So that is the advantage of using this HDPE crates, high density polyethylene crates, or the fiberglass crates are now commonly used. Okay, in India we are commonly using the HDPE crates. Okay, see that crates is also not broken, it is not having sharp corners, so you can see a somewhat broken, like so. Such crates should not be used, because again it can lead to the bruises. Okay, so number of birds that you can put in the crates. After catching the birds are put in the crates or the coops. So normally we recommend around 0.8 into 0.6 into 0.3 meter cube crates, around 10 to 12 birds. So when we can put 10 birds and when you can put 12 birds. When the climate is cool, you can go up to 12 birds. When the temperature is high, or the atmospheric temperature is high, you have to put only 10 birds. Okay, this is how we have to catch and put the birds in the crates. So now coming to the transportation of the birds. So as already I told you, the transportation of the birds should be done in the early morning or late evening or the midnight. As you catch the birds, you have to transport it. So before transportation also, around 40 to 60%, about half of 50 time of the fasting time, okay, or rather, I told 8 to 12 hours is the most. So around 4 to 6 hours do fasting in the farm itself. The advantage is that the birds will feel more comfort. So the evacuation will be maximum. Okay, that is the advantages when you do fasting in the farm itself than during the transportations or in the processing unit. So do fasting maximum as far as long you can do fasting in the farm, that will be better. So the optimum is 8 to 12 hours. So I see that at least minimum 50% of the fasting time is spent in the farm itself, because the birds feel more comfort, and the evacuation of the GI tract will be maximum in the when you do fasting in the farm itself. So time of transportation, as I already told, the birds are very much prone for the heat stress. The reason is that it does not have the sweat glands. Another is its body temperature is high. So when we can transport the birds, so we can transport the birds in Indian condition when the temperature is very high. It is better to transport in the midnight. Okay, midnight you can transport the birds. Okay, that is the best thing. Then what are the precautions that we have to take when you are transporting the birds? So see that once you loaded the birds, you start the vehicle and don't put the birds in the truck for a long durations, because you know that when you, for example, if you take in a car, when you sit in the car and the car is not moving, okay, don't think it is not an AC car, it's an ordinary car. If the car is not moving, what will be the issues? You feel suffocating. Okay, when the car start moving, what happens is there is air circulations, so you feel somewhat cool like. Okay, so same thing here also. Once you loaded the birds, keep the vehicle moving, don't stop the vehicle. Okay, keep the vehicle moving, because then there will be better circulation of the air, so the birds will not be put under stress, or the heat stress will not be much. Okay, if at all, if you want to stop the birds, stop under a shade. Okay, and if it is closed, if it is a closed vehicle, now you can see here it's an open vehicle. Okay, if it is a closed vehicle, see that maximum ventilation, wherever you can open it and see it, keep the proper ventilation is there. Otherwise the birds will die because of the heat stress. Is it clear? And whenever you are transporting, you have to cover the tops and other things. So it is not, that is protect from the inclined weather. Whether its climate is too cold or too hot, you have to see that you are protecting from the inclined weathers. Okay, so you can put the cover. If the temperature is very cold, then you can put the cover on it. If the temperature is very high, see the top is covered so the direct sunlight will not fall, but sides are open so that there is a proper air circulations. So that's such things. Basically there should be proper ventilations. Okay, it should not be too high temperature, or it should not be too. So the best time in Indian condition is to transport during the midnight or late evening. Depends upon the distance how much you have to transport, or in the early morning when the climate is very cool. That is the best time to transport the birds in Indian conditions. So another thing that you have to take care is you have to instruct the driver is that they should not apply any sudden brakes. Okay, so when the sudden brake is applied, again it goes and dash against the walls of the crates. It can lead to bruises and fractures can take place. So sudden brake should not be applied, and sudden turning should not be taken. And always try to select a good roads. Okay, because when they falls in the gutters or in the potholes, there's a chance for bruises is more. So always try to select a good road when you are transporting the birds. Okay, these are the certain things that we have to take care. So there should be proper air circulation that you have to see. Proper roads should be selected. As far as possible, don't stop the vehicle anywhere and keep on moving the vehicle so that there is a proper air circulations. So that will be helping in the proper ventilations, or the air movements will be. And when you stock the birds also, see that there is a proper air circulation inside the trucks. Okay, there's a proper air circulation inside the truck. So whenever nowadays the forklifts can be used, so we can catch the birds, and using the forklift we can unload or load the birds in the trucks. Okay, so that is what we have to see. And see transportation, what happens during the transportation. So, that's what I told you. You should not apply the sudden brakes, should not be there. Stopping of the vehicle should be see, you can see the conditions, yes, because when you apply the sudden brakes or if it make a sudden turns, there's a chance for the vehicle to fall down, okay, and the fall down, and you can see the conditions here, okay. See, this is another inhumane method of transportation of the birds in Tamil Nadu and in our neighboring states. You must have seen such conditions that transporting the birds from the border area to Kerala in these conditions also you must have seen that one. So okay, these are inhumane method of transportation, and it should be reported. Actually, when you see it, you have to be reported to the concerned person. Okay, another is procurement shrinkage. Okay, so when you are doing the transportations, there will be a loss in weight. So the study shows that up to 50 kilometers, okay, of transportation, the loss is approximately, I'm telling, the approximate is 1.15% of the total live body weight. 50 to 100 kilometers, it is 1.50 to 100 kilometers, sorry, it is 10, it is 50 to 100 kilometers, it is 1.62%, and beyond 100 kilometers, it's 2.2. This is approximate shrinkage loss, or the procurement shrinkage we can cause, or transportation shrinkage we can cause, we can tell. So this is the weight loss we can come across. So once you reach the farm, so from the farms, once you reach the processing unit, the poultry processing unit, immediate unloading of the birds should be followed. Okay, the birds should be immediately unloaded. So this is the automatic unloader systems here. So you can feed it out, so the birds will be coming, and in the conveyor, the crates will be just moving. Okay, the crates in the conveyor will be moving. Then it goes to the assembling area. In next class, we'll be discussing about that. Okay, how it moves in the further processing. Okay, so once the birds comes, immediately you have to take care. The birds are unloaded immediately, because when you stop the vehicle, I told this, there will not be proper ventilations. Okay, so there should be proper ventilation. For that, we have to immediately unload the crates or the birds. Okay, immediately you have to unload the birds, so there's a proper ventilation, so you're not going to put the birds under stress. If you're not unloading, there will be a lot of death of the birds will be taking place. So you have to unload the birds immediately after it comes to the processing plant. Never delay the unloading of the birds. So then I'll be showing two clippings how we have to the catching of the birds, the automatic catching of the birds, and followed by how roughly they're handling the birds. So what are the consequences we can come across? Okay. Now we are going to see how inhumane how inhumanely they're handling the birds. Here you can see the clipping that I'm going to show is that you can see this man is throwing the birds into the crate. Okay, so when you throw the birds, what happens is it's going to dash against the walls of this crates, or it may be dashing against these walls. It can lead to the fracture, and it can lead to the bruises. Okay, so naturally it is going to affect the quality of the carcasses or aesthetic because of the bruises. It is going to, even the grading, it will be the grading proper, it will not come under the proper best grades. Okay, so it is going to affect the value of that carcasses also. Not only that, it is going to put the birds under pain, because from the loading or during the transportation, this has to undergo all this pain. Okay, so it is an inhumane method of catching the birds. So the catching crews should be trained out to catch the birds, so that the bruises can be reduced, and the proper handling of the birds will also reduce the stress on the birds. Okay, if you are going with the manual catching of the birds. Okay, and not only that, another thing that we can say is that you can give some incentives to the catching crews if they reduce the bruises, because if the bruises increases, naturally it is going to be a big loss for the company. So that can be reduced. Okay, the bruises, every step should be taken to reduce the bruises and stress on the birds. So just see the clippings now. So how he is throwing the birds. Okay. So now we are going to see the automatic. So now I am going to talk about the automatic bird catcher. The advantage of the automatic bird catcher is that the labor involvement is very less. About that, the stress on the bird is very less. So when the human catches, there is a lot of stress on the birds. Here the bird stress on the bird is very less. There is bruises will be very less, and the fractures will not be there. So these are the advantages for the automatic bird catcher when we use it. So let's see how the automatic bird catcher will work. So here the birds will catch, the automatic catcher will catch the birds. It automatically goes into the crates, and the crates using the forklift, the crates are carried and it is loaded on the truck, and the truck will be carrying the birds from the farm to the processing units. So let's see how this automatic bird catcher is working. See, through the conveyor it is just carried. God bless you all. Thank you very much. Bye.